Hi, today we are speaking with Rajarshi Moitra, Executive Officer Consumer Business at Bridgestone. Raj, thank you so much for making time to speak to us.
Thank you, Lily. It's always a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you so much. So Raj, let's start with your journey to becoming the Executive Officer here at Bridgestone.
So Lily, it's been a very, I think, unorthodox journey. I started off with HR. Did a couple of years of HR, initially around business HR, then moved to a project around setting up a go-to-market system in one of my assignments. Came back to HR. At one fine opportunity, during one of my career discussions, I took an initiative and asked for a role in business.
Okay.
Got it, delivered it, and now I've been handling general management assignments for the last 10 years. So yeah, very interesting. Not linear, divergent, but yeah, great on learning.
Okay, that's super. So you were saying that just a couple of years in HR and then it's been to general management.
So yeah, around 5 years or 6 years in HR, and now the last 9 years I've been general management. Sales, marketing, yeah.
Super. And your current role here at Bridgestone, what does it include?
So, Vidhi, I lead Bridgestone's consumer business, which is a large part of Bridgestone's business in India. And I lead the P&L. So, the retail distribution, the key accounts, Firestone as a brand, and the entire business kind of is what I look after.
Is what you look after. And that's a critical part of the business with multiple responsibilities. How does an executive officer wear these multiple hats of looking at different functions, different brands? How do you take responsibilities for all of them?
So I think one of the differences between, say, being a functional leader, so when you're a sales leader or a marketing leader, vis-a-vis kind of looking at the P&L, is each decision has a trade-off.
Okay.
Right? These roles teach you to manage those trade-offs better. For example, as a sales leader, I would want to be loaded with stocks so that I can sell what I want to sell.
Okay.
However, when you're looking at it from a P&L point of view, there is an inventory holding cost.
Yes.
Right? So, I may want to work on an optimized inventory. Now, from a supply chain, to manage optimized inventory, I would like to run production as I want.
Yep.
So that I'm able to, so I manage optimized inventory and sales delivers the numbers. However, running production without a continuous streaming leads to costs of production.
Yes.
Right? So there are constraints at each end.
At each level.
In this role, I need to constantly weigh those constraints and then take balanced decisions. Vis-a-vis maybe 6 years back, when I would just look at how do I deliver the customer, and come and create a lot of, amplify all of those problems without being kind of sensitive to how it has an impact on the organization.
On the rest of the organization, because the hat you're wearing is only that for the customer. Here you're wearing a hat for customer and several others as well. What does a leader do in order to balance these priorities? Do you get your teams together? Do you get into each one's responsibilities to understand it? What is it that you do on a regular basis to manage that?
I think the first thing you said is it's core to get your core working team together, right? And they kind of getting interlinked. While it sounds good in English, how do you interlink all of them? You interlink all of them through proper KPIs, shared matrices. Get each of them to understand and empathize with the constraints of the other.
Okay.
Look at problems from a problem point of view without wearing a functional hat. Right? So, there are often the field teams come back to us and say, our signaging is getting delayed. So while we're opening a lot of new outlets, signaging quality is poor, signaging is getting delayed. The easier thing is to go and say, the retail organization, the marketing organization is not delivering. However, if you remove the function and come back and say, okay, signaging as a problem is getting delayed, let's look at why it is getting delayed. Is it getting delayed because of, recce? Is it getting delayed because of poor vendors? Is it getting delayed because of budgets? Is it getting delayed because POs by the purchase team are getting delayed? And then solve for those bottlenecks.
And jointly solve
and
the
jointly
problem
solve them
versus fixing it to
the functions, right?
Okay.
The second is when you're setting these key KPIs, it is important as the business leader for me to share KPIs which are interlinked and finally deliver the work or deliver the business kind of objectives. Then ensure very strong cross-functional review mechanisms. So each of them are kind of reviewed together, and hence you're not reviewing a function, you're reviewing an objective, or you're reviewing a problem, or you're reviewing a challenge. Is another mix. So that
move away from the person to the problem, and then solve the problem.
Move away from the person, I would say larger. Move away from the function to the problem.
Function to the problem at hand. Oh, okay. When you said, you spoke of this, that you move away from a function into a problem, and similarly, what you hold as key values for yourself as a leader? What are your uncompromisable values?
I think my first core value is honesty.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I'd like to work with teams and in organizations where honesty is right. How do you define honesty? Is being what you are.
Okay.
Right. The leaders, and in today's world, with the way the digital era is kind of taking along, there'll be guys 10 years lesser, younger, who know much more than we do.
True.
So it's okay to be vulnerable. You may not know everything. You know, as I see a leader, it's like a sheepdog who's not kind of visible, but the sheep keep moving.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So honesty for me, openness is very, very, very important. That's a core value that I kind of live by.
Okay.
Taking people along.
On your agenda, on your plans.
Yes.
Okay.
And when I say taking people along, why is it important? You can take people who are in your organization along because they are kind of accountable to you. Right? So they know that you do their appraisals, you may matter their career, their salary increments, so they kind of fall in. But then there's this entire leadership through influence, right? There are people, functions who don't kind of report it to you,
Yes.
but impact your delivery. Very, very important. So how do you kind of take them along?
As the African proverb says, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you want to play for the long run,
Yes.
you take,
kind of take people along.
take people along. Okay.
I think these have been my core values. And okay, the other is, I've always believed and that good teams are teams where people challenge each other without kind of holding on, but they don't challenge a problem. They don't challenge a person. They challenge the problem.
In order to get better
So
value to the
confrontation, open challenging is something that I thrive on, and I believe I would like to build in the teams that I work with. I have successfully done that in the past. What it does is removes all the negativity, toxicity, politics, interpersonal issues, because then you're discussing problems and not people, not functions and stuff like that.
What you can build that in your organization as a leader? What happens when those values get compromised outside in the marketplace? How do you deal with those conflicts? If I'm not saying their values are getting compromised, sorry. I mean, what happens when there is a conflict in the values?
You stand by your values.
You stand by your values.
Low stake behavior defines values.
Can you give us something specific around it?
So I can give you a very relevant experience. So 5 years back, I was much younger and I was kind of just embarking on this journey, 6 years back. So a truck of ours was caught by a sales tax officer in UP.
Okay.
And he came, basically there was an issue with the LR copy where some SKU quantity was misprinted. It was an erroneous issue. But again, from a sales tax point of view, he wanted to earn money. And this is like 6-7 years back. I had kind of just moved into my first business assignment. Not 6-7, actually 8-9 years back. And it's first 2 years or so. And so the commercial manager, finance person from North Field called up the HO Finance and said, we need to pay something. So HO Finance called me up for my approval to pay something. I said, why? Oh, what's the issue? Is it deliberate? Then some heads will go, because that's integrity.
Yes.
If it's an error, then let's stand up. Why should we pay bribes for it? I've never paid bribes. But it was a very, very significant sum. Can't disclose it, but sum in terms of consignment value.
Sure.
So I got a little worried. So I called up my boss, and he was in some meeting, so he didn't pick up. Gave him some 30 missed calls, he didn't pick up a call.
Boss trusts you to do your job. I doesn't want to take your calls, okay?
I called up the CFO. And so CFO said, we should do what's right. I said, fair, but this is the value. This is the profitability loss. He said, oh, is it? What do you suggest? I said, what do you think? This is what I suggest. He said, don't know, call up, why are you getting into this? Call up the supply chain person. I said, fair, call up the supply chain person. I said, your call. But I'm not going to sign a single paper to pay the time. Net, nobody was taking call. It was 8 o'clock. The sales tax officer in UP wanted to go home. He realized he'd haggled enough. And he came down to a paltry sum. I said, look, if I'm not paying, we're not paying. Let the truck remain. We'll sign proper LR copies and we'll send it across. And took a call. Then at 11, my boss called up and I said, look, since you didn't pick up the phone, I've taken this call. And it's fair. What you've done is right.
That's nice.
But the entire organization got a message that stand by, and the organization will stand by you. Actually, everybody was scared, given the consignment value and the tax penalty, whether we should take it or not take it. And I keep telling everybody who works with me, values and behavior get defined at low stake behavior.
Yes.
Right. So if you're okay to pay a traffic police a bribe, you'll be okay to pay this consignment.
Absolutely.
Right. So people come back and say, stakes are very high. I don't think that's right. And that's where true leadership gets tested.
Keep your values high and keep them there. But you also got backing and support from your boss at that point in time. Tell us how important is that manager-team member relationship, and no more is it hierarchy today. People work in a networked organization. Those walls are collapsing. How good is it, or how important is it to find a good boss?
Very good. The manager-boss reporting or relationship has to be built on a lot of trust both ends.
Okay.
Because if there is even a little iota of distrust, then the manager starts over-scrutinizing and the subordinate starts kind of judging. The other thing that you kind of rightly said is now the paternalistic style of management is kind of vanishing. So it's more collaborative. Younger lot respect people on capability or what they bring to the table than hierarchy. So if a boss, even today, would come to me and say, because I'm a boss, you do it, I would say, sorry, I wouldn't. Right? Thankfully, I've been fortunate. No, it's not that I've been fortunate. I've had bosses of both kinds, but you don't choose your bosses.
You don't.
If you realize that your values don't match, then it's okay to cut your losses faster.
Okay.
If you realize there's a value match, but there is a trust issue, I think you can walk the first step with your boss to build that trust. Say, I have these perspectives about you. And I've had it work for me. So my boss said, okay, I did kind of look at it from that perspective.
But I know.
Every individual is different. Now, when I have come in and have teams, I think I look at building the trust. I also try to understand how people are kind of perceiving me, because perception is reality. Right? So I may think whoever I am, I may be the best leader, most vulnerable, very approachable. But if people don't perceive me to be that way, then that's not the truth. So most managers I see think they are very nice, objective, high EQ, vulnerable. However, the people don't perceive them. So you have to kind of build that gap.
That connect with them. Okay. The younger lot comes with that expectation. But on this note, we'll just take a quick break and come back to speaking with Rajarshi Moitra of Bridgestone India. Hi, we are back, and here we are speaking with Rajarshi Moitra of Bridgestone India. Thanks, Raj. So we are talking about leaders working in a networked organization. There are a lot of dynamics at play today. What is the role of technology, digital, AI, 3D printing, a lot of technologies affecting your industry? How is it that you're seeing that at play?
I think it's now become a cliche to say that technology is going to be the biggest disruptor, right? But that's where it is. I don't think technology is going to be an enabler anymore. Technology is going to be a way of life.
Yes.
So across various things. So if you look at the customer management, the customer itself is getting more networked, right? So if you go to buy a TV, you'll first on Google online, you'll go to Amazon, see the prices, take the spec, go to Vijay Sales, look at the spec, compare the prices, and negotiate. So I had a very interesting experience a couple of days back. I went to buy an electronic gadget at Vijay Sales and I told him, look, I'm getting this cheaper on Amazon. And he said, no, don't worry, we match prices with Amazon. So that's where it's all becoming omni-channel, right? What does it
affect your business also?
Completely.
Well?
So what it means is the customer experience journey with a brand is not just the point of sale. which used to be how it was traditionally. The customer experience of the brand starts from the time the customer started to think of the brand. Because he's going online, he's there. Social network, search, convenience, service, experience, post sales, and all of this to map with a customer, you have to get technologically enabled, otherwise you wouldn't be able to manage it.
And with Bridgestone's promise of superior quality at every time, do you use technology, or how are you using technology even to create state-of-the-art products?
So, okay, there's a lot of technology we have, and there is a lot of advanced digital technology that we have in terms of designing our products.
Okay.
Technology comes into simulation when you're testing conditions, right? You can kind of today simulate road conditions, you can simulate user conditions, you can simulate vehicle dynamics, which in the past you would have to build a prototype and go and test it in the market. You talked about 3D printing, right? You can 3D print molds, produce prototypes and kind of move much faster. So on the product side, yes, there is a lot of technology that's happening, and it's only going to get, so if you look at what BMW is talking about, they're talking about N is equal to 1. Each customer is unique, right?
Yes.
So you could go and choose the seat, the upholstery, the key, the color, and then prototype your car, and then they send it into manufacturing. So it's not standard colors anymore, or standard upholstery anymore. So world is going towards that N is equal to 1. If the world is going towards N is equal to 1, every industry, not just us, needs to move towards N is equal to 1.
Absolutely. In that case, and I like your phrase of N is equal to 1, which we can all borrow from BMW, what should the youth of today, who's aspiring to be leader like yourself, tomorrow do today to be those kind of world-class leaders?
So I think first is keep your foundations very, very strong. So, I keep telling a lot of youngsters who work with me, when you're doing a GTM, go back to 4 Ps. Because while there is this buzz around social media, digital, online, offline, omni-channel, multi-brand retail, the core fundamentals are still relevant. They've been relevant 50 years back, and they'll be relevant 50 years hence. So it's important to keep your fundamentals very, very strong.
Okay.
But while you keep the fundamentals strong, keep yourself abridged with what's happening in the dynamic world, and keep building those interlinkages in your own mind. But that's how you will differentiate yourself vis-a-vis the others. So that's on the skill set point of view. I think the youth of today looking at leadership positions should move off from working in very clear structures.
Okay.
Even we at times, because we've grown up working in clear structures, for us to move from clear structures to fairly networked, hazy organizations is a challenge, right? And it's a learning we're going through. They're at a disadvantage, they're at an advantage of having learned that early. So working more collaboratives. I think ruthless collaboration from a skill set point of view, ability to work with diverse people, right? Inclusive leadership, because ideas may come from anywhere. The world is moving towards open innovation, where you just have a problem, you get scientists, solve it and move. People are moving towards open inciting, where you may not have all the insights, but there's somewhere somebody online has that insight. So how do you tap into these? The only way you will be able to tap into these opportunities is where your own thinking becomes variable rather than being linear. I think that's going to be a big differentiator for you going forward.
Stick to your fundamentals, stay open, collaborate with several others, and you're going to be well set for future.
Yeah.
On that note, we'll end today's conversation. Thanks once again for
Thank you.
speaking to us.